Hello, and welcome to the session on DevOps Workflow. In this session, we will understand what a workflow is, how it is applicable for a particular software development project, and what are the various tools that can be used to create the workflow. Workflow allows you the ability to create a complex set of repeatable tasks. It's like a sticky wrapper in the DevOps Continuous Delivery that holds it all together for you. Workflows work as a glue between various processes and systems, while allowing you to easily track their progress. Imagine having perfect test automation scripts, but no easy way to execute them outside of constructing a new build, or having a perfect CMDB integration script, but no way to call them outside of the build process. Or, even worse, having a need for human approval before a deployment takes place, and no way to integrate it outside of a custom deployable process. Our usual software development cycle looks something like this. Developers need a preconfigured environment with all the latest services running that is consistent and the same for each of the developers on the whole team. Developers check in their code in the Git repository from where it picked up and the build is run. You deploy the latest release of the software application to a temporary server. Deploy your test harness to test your software application, and after all tests are complete, just get rid of that server and environment. Set up your production environment and deploy the latest release of your software application to prod. Accordingly, send off notifications at each of the steps noting the completion status, success, and failure. These are the tasks we do in our day-to-day and our project work operations. This is what we call a typical SDLC project cycle, with a few variations here and there. When you are designing a workflow, try to break down automation constructs into logical functions that are intended to provide build automation. For example, you should not include turning monitor functions on or off. Something like a build automation also should not have to worry about the deployment process. Its primary singular purpose is to construct a new build, wherein that new build is then deployed and becomes a single purpose of the deployment process. Attempting to automate the entire cycle of an application into one automation construct from end to end, instead of having small blocks that work together, increases the size of it, which increases the risk and increases the runtime, which makes it difficult to debug if there is any problem. Also, doing so takes away the ability to run any one of these steps if you want to rerun them at any point. When you are planning for a workflow, a broad overview can get you started on assembling your workflow from the top down. The most important point when it comes to planning your flow is that you actually do it. Making a good plan before you start a workflow will end up saving a lot of time and heartache in the long run. When you are planning a workflow, drawing out the flow to help you visualize the flow logic or writing out a sketch in some textual form, like swim lane concepts, can be great ways to help identify what systems are involved and what it's doing, using placeholder steps as you gradually build up your flow's interconnecting parts. Let's take a moment to talk about human intervention in a typical workflow that we follow for software development life cycles. Every time you are ready to do a build, you have to seek approvals, you have to seek sign-offs, you have to wait for the people to be available to come to a meeting, to come to checkpoints. If you have automated your workflow, and every time you have to pause your automation to obtain a human approval, you are unnecessarily introducing time delays that cannot be predicted or occur with any kind of consistency. Similarly, imagine a deployment process that required a human to press yes before continuing. The introduction of a human approval can sit idle on a tooling screen for hours during lunch or any unexpected days off, or the person being on vacation. Automate processes with such quality and consistency so that the human intervention could merely become redundant and unnecessary. Workflow Wrapper is a highly functional tool to allow you to redesign more effective automation processes, limiting human interaction where possible. Again, the goal is to build small, independent automation constructs that work together in a highly efficient manner. When you sit down to create a workflow, keep a rule of thumb in mind that a big workflow is a bad workflow. Big flows are hard to create, hard to read, hard to test, hard to maintain, and even hard to use. When you are creating a workflow, break down the large flow into smaller, more manageable units that can flow themselves. Each unit can have a single, well-focused purpose. If you narrow down the scope of each of the flow's components, you basically make each component easier to test and easier to fix when something goes wrong or perhaps needs updating. Smaller, less complex units are easier to test independently, and every time you have an iterative task, ask yourself if this can be done in parallel instead of basically doing the same work and in lesser time. If you have smaller chunks of manageable work, then you can actually make them run in parallel, rather than waiting for the sequence to run. When you are creating workflows, consider your error handling. Minimize errors, and make your debugging as easy as possible. Start your flow with an initialization step that would basically sanitize all parameters before they are being used in your workflow. Handle all possible null values that could possibly arise. Results like success and failure are simple and easy to understand. Use a more robust set of rules that will impart a bit more information as to what exactly went wrong. When you are creating a workflow, take care of the notifications. Notifications can also be handled in Workflow Wrapper much better than in individual DevOps tools. For example, a release manager wanted to know the build processes for his or her application would have to build a notification method embedded within build processes in order to know if the build passed or failed. An alternative is the Workflow Wrapper. Just check the build logs, and you can send notifications in the preferred method, whether it's email, a text message, or even an Instagram picture. Additionally, one may not check the status of each and every build created. They may want to know only when a build gets passed and is ready for further testing environments. Even departmental notification escalation chains can be incorporated easily in a workflow wrapper and execute as expected, but not within each DevOps tool. When you are creating a workflow, definitely consider release management. Your release orchestration tools have some minimal workflow capabilities built into their offerings. Most of the release management tooling is designed to put an elegant wrapper around the build automation and deployment processes, and it has the ability to segment by line of business or product, as well as role-based access controls for permissions and edit auditory complaints. What release management excels in are human interactions and entire tracking progresses of your release deployment. Highly evolved notification systems tend to require an external workflow wrapper beyond the normal capabilities that a release management tool can offer. A solid workflow wrapper acts as a glue that can hold disparate DevOps tools together.
Hey, want to become an expert in cloud computing? Then subscribe to Simplilearn's channel and click here to watch more such videos. To nerd up and get certified in cloud computing, click here.